First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Tom Nazario. I teach at USF Law School, and I run an organization called the Forgotten International. I wanted to spend some time... Thank you. I wanted to spend some time thanking all of you for coming here. And really, I almost need to say thank you 3 times. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Largely because I do thank you from the bottom of my heart. Not only have you come to support some of the work that we do at the Forgotten, but you've come to share your love, to share some time with, I think, one of the most important and caring and loving people on earth. To share your love with him is something he truly appreciates. He loves actually traveling the world, meeting people, and getting some of your energy to continue his work. So just thank you for being here. Let me just say a few other things. I wanted to spend just a moment talking to you a little bit about how I met His Holiness, and that was about 10 years. My expertise is children's law, and I was asked to go to northern India and interview children who had traveled across the Himalayas to go to free schools that were established by His Holiness and escape the terrible conditions that they were living in Tibet and in China. I spent quite a bit of time with these children, interviewed some 100 or 200 of them, and talked to them about their lives in Tibet, their lives, not only the lives they were going through in their schools and how they were being punished in schools and so on and so forth, but also the lives of their families and what they had to endure in Tibet over the course of the Chinese occupation. It was heart-wrenching work, and over the course of that time I spent 3 days spending, I think, a lot of time with His Holiness, telling him the stories, many of which he knew, and putting together a report for the United Nations on the treatment of Tibetan children by the Chinese government. So over the course of time, we've done a variety of things, and we've become friends, and he's truly been one of the best friends that I've had in life. It's always a joy to be with him. Anything I do with him is a learning experience, and I think I've been blessed to have this relationship with him, and I'm so pleased to share at least a little bit of my relationship with all of you here today. The final thing I wanted to tell you is how this day really came about. Anytime His Holiness is in the United States, I usually spend some time with him, and the last time he was in San Francisco, I asked him a question. Now, one of the things that His Holiness is certainly noted about, or known about, is his kindness. And he has never turned down any request I've ever made. He is just extraordinarily kind, extraordinarily generous, and for some reason he seems to like me. So it's worked out quite well. Last time he was here, I spent a moment with him and I said, Your Holiness, one of the things that I'd like to recommend is that next time you come to San Francisco, because you always spend quite a bit of time with America's privileged, America's wealthy, I would like you to spend some time with America's poor. Next time you come to San Francisco, I would like you to come with me to a soup kitchen and feed the hungry, and really get a look at some of the people who suffer in our own country and spend a little time with him. And so when I described that to him, His Holiness said, let's go today. And I said, you know, we really can't go today. We can't go today because it involves a lot of security clearances. The dogs have to go through this soup kitchen. And the people at the soup kitchen that are hoping that you come aren't even there today, so this would not be a good day. And he said, anytime you're offered an opportunity to do good, you must do it. Let's go today. So I said, and I found myself having an argument with the Dalai Lama. And this was quite strange. And if you ever see some photos of this little tit-for-tat that he and I were having, you can actually see it in the body language that we were arguing. And one of the things he likes about Westerners is that Westerners will argue with him. Tibetans ordinarily don't do that. But so he went on, and finally he said, okay, let's go. next time I'm in San Francisco. He knew he was going to be in San Francisco in 2 years. And so he turned to one of his secretaries, and he said something in Tibetan. And I didn't know what he said until after I left the room, because I asked a friend, of course, who spoke Tibetan. And what he said was, "Does it really take 2 years to visit the homeless in this country?" So that's the kind of fellow he is. He's actually very, very much looking forward to spending some time with the homeless this afternoon. And the truth is that when he leaves this room, he will be shooting out to the soup kitchen to serve lunch to some of San Francisco's poor. And then he will be coming back here this afternoon. So he will be having breakfast with you and lunch at a soup kitchen. All right, that's all I need to say this morning to at least get you started. But I will be coming back and talking a little bit about the work of the Forgotten International. And, of course, the Dalai Lama will be joining us as well.
And as we prepare to welcome His Holiness the Dalai Lama, let's spend a moment of quiet and mindfulness. Let us fill our hearts with compassion towards ourselves and towards all living beings, and most especially those served by the Forgotten International, all who live on the margins of life and death. Let us reflect on these words of His Holiness. It is not enough to be compassionate, but we must act. In this spirit, in the spirit of Francis, for whom this great city is named, let us be inspired to act, to do good today, and create in our own hearts and on earth a world of justice, peace, and compassion. A world where we understand we are all brothers and sisters, nourished from the same source of life. For the joy and nourishment of this food and music, for each other, for those who prepared and serve us, for the Tibetan community of the Bay Area, for all those whose generosity made this breakfast possible, for the good work of the many agencies represented here, we give thanks. May we live this day compassionate of heart, gracious in awareness, courageous in thought and act, and generous in love. Amen.
Today is really about giving, caring, and thinking of people who have less fortune than you do. That's really the theme of this morning's program. Now, some years ago, and this is a story I tell in the personal and the formal invitations that you may have received. It's part of that formal invitation. I was blessed to be in the company of the Dalai Lama and a friend of his who had come up from Bombay, now Mumbai, India, to visit with the Dalai Lama some years ago. This gentleman came up from Mumbai and came up with his family, quite wealthy gentleman. You could tell from his dress and his manner and his education. Had his whole family there with him, and they spent about an hour, this family and the Dalai Lama, speaking about all the woes of the world, how people should, in fact, interrelate with one another, what is the meaning of life, what is the things that are most important to do and not to do. All of the things that one would have in a typical conversation with one of the wisest people on earth. At the end of the conversation, this particular family asked the Dalai Lama if the Dalai Lama would be so kind as to bless this family before they left. Again, would be so kind as to bless them before they left. I thought this was an easy one. I thought the Dalai Lama was going to quickly say, yes, no problem, I will give you my blessing. But the Dalai Lama said instead that, I really don't like to bless people. Who am I to bless you? I am the same as you. I'm a simple man who's simply trying to get through this life the best way I know how. That we all try to do the same thing. We all human beings, simple people, just trying to do the best we can. However, if you wish to feel blessed, I would recommend that you go back to Mumbai for which you've come, and work with all of those people in and around you who have so little and suffer so much, and in return you will feel blessed. I think what he said that day really connotes his humility and his caring for others, and what he wishes to encourage the world to do. That's really how you feel blessed, in the spirit and in the actions that you take to help others. That makes for the best day possible. That's what we have done at the Forgotten International, to work with people in and around the world who have so little and suffer so much, and in return we have felt blessed. We will bring His Holiness in now, and then we'll, of course, get to the program of the day.
Good morning. I'm Mark Gonerman. I'll be the moderator for this portion of our morning here together. I'd first like to thank Tom Nazario for his vision and leadership for the Forgotten International. And before we get into the program, we're going to show a tape that explains the work and the mission of the Forgotten International. So let's roll the tape.
The Forgotten International, an organization that every day works at bringing hope to the world's forgotten people. It is in doing that work that we would like to introduce you to some of the people we've seen, people who have so little and suffer so much. Like this family, for example, who lives on the side of a highway in central India and survives on little more than nothing at all. Or this child who lives in a house made of garbage by a polluted river in the city of New Delhi, and on most days joins millions of other children throughout India who forge through garbage for anything that might get them through another day. Or in colder climates, for example in Eastern Europe, where children still grow up in sewers like their parents had done before them. Or where possible, like this family, simply decide to occupy abandoned buildings all over the world. Children, of course, who have nothing or no one often simply decide to beg on our streets. And in some cities are hardly noticed at all. Or in other places, these children can often be found on the side of a road, much like garbage. Yes, the children of the poor can be found all over the world. Sometimes nearly dying, sometimes dead. Sometimes, too, they are blind for simply having a lack of medical care, or abandoned by their parents for simply being blind, or worse, sold into the sex trade by parents for little more than what we would make in a day in the United States. Attempting to escape from poverty is not easy, particularly for Tibetan refugee youth who often lose their battle to frostbite when attempting to cross the Himalayas for freedom in the dead of winter. Remember, however, of all of the world's poor, most are women and children. And when we help women, we help children, for the two are interdependent, and the truth is that it is the women of the world who nurture all of us. Something else that we have consistently found to be true is that regardless of where we happen to find the children of the poor, they are always so beautiful. Like these children we found in central India, where we stopped to help build 4 new classrooms so they could go to school. Or this child who lives in a boarding house we helped build for the children of beggars. Or these children who live in one of New Delhi's biggest slums and have never seen a doctor, but soon will under a program we're presently establishing. Or this child who lives in Nepal and next year will be starting school because we decided to help. Or these children who live in northern Thailand and now get our help to stay in school so they may never be sold into the sex trade. Yes, all these children are all so beautiful, and yes, all have dreams for a better life, and just need a little help to get to that first run of the economic ladder. Whether they live in the mountains of Nepal or in the village of Dharamsala in northern India or the highlands of Tibet, or have been found abandoned at an orphanage almost anywhere in the world, they are truly beautiful. And they love to have their pictures taken. And what of some of the work we do? Of course, we work to keep girls in school. We help families with scholarships. We seek the advice of elders. And we fund schools that promise to enroll more than 50% girls. We will help build schools for the disabled and schools for the extreme poor in places like Africa, and give girls the skills they need to find alternatives in life, and simply visit and help children who have no visitors or have no home or have no parents. Yes, we are there if you can't be, with children who have muscular dystrophy, with children who may only have one toy in their whole life, only one set of play clothes. We also work to remind you of their existence and to ask you to help, because but for your help, these children and so many others would go forgotten. Yes, that is the work we do. Thank you for caring.
And today we see the network of people who care and are joining together to further this project of giving, which is our theme for this morning's conversation with His Holiness Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama. Our plan is to invite 3 guest philanthropists onto the stage to join in this conversation, and I'll introduce those 3 right now. The first being Betsy Gordon of the Betsy Gordon Foundation in San Rafael. She is committed to being personally involved in working with various organizations to implement their programs and help them achieve their goals. Her foundation seeks to support organizations engaged in research and service that bridges the inner work of mind and spirit and the outer work of action and service in the world. She and her foundation have actively supported the Tibetan cause by establishing a scholarship fund for Tibetan students residing in Northern California, and through her various contributions to the Tibetan Nuns Project. Of her work, she says, "If you give something, you have to be open to receiving from others the gift that you get in return." Please join me in welcoming Betsy Gordon. Our second guest is Michael Quinn, who is a vice president of customer advocacy at Cisco Systems in San Jose. Before joining Cisco, he served in the United States Marine Corps and with U.S. government agencies focused on intelligence and the utilization of technologies in intelligence operations. He is committed to Veterans Affairs and was recently appointed by President Obama to serve as an advisor on veteran employment training and employment outreach. Mr. Quinn is a member of the board of directors of TechSoup, an organization that helps nonprofits, companies, and foundations use technology to optimize their philanthropic impact. He also sits on the board of trustees of the Cisco Foundation, which makes strategic grants to programs with long-lasting impact on a local, national, and global scale. He lives in Aptos, California with his wife Jean and 3 daughters. Please join me in welcoming Michael Quinn. Our next guest is Sejal Hati, a 17-year-old senior at Notre Dame High School in San Jose, who believes that all youth have the power to assert and transform themselves into ambassadors for humanity. Galvanized by the suffering and the poverty she witnessed in the lives of many girls around the world, she started Girls Helping Girls, an international nonprofit organization that empowers young people by mobilizing them in the struggle to eradicate poverty, increase access to education, improve health, and promote peace. Sejal has mentored, trained, and spoken to thousands of girls from more than 15 countries on how to create social change and realize their vision for a better world. She told me that one of her heroes is Paul Farmer, the anthropologist and physician who founded Partners in Health. And next fall, she will enter college with plans to study medicine and create a career for herself in the field of public health. Please join me in welcoming Sejal Hati. So we can get right into the conversation. I will begin, first, welcome again, Your Holiness, We're here to hear your words about giving. And as we were coming in today, there were many of your quotations put up on the screen. And one of them particularly struck me because when I think of you, I think that you are one of the most generous, always giving people on the face of the earth. Your schedule is incredible. When are you not giving of yourself to others? And one of the quotations was, the more we care for the happiness of others, the greater our own sense of well-being becomes. And I wonder if you could begin by talking about the way in which your life of generosity, of giving, has contributed to your own well-being.
Let me think. I think basically we human being is social animal. Our survival depend on the rest of the community. That's fact. So taking care or taking serious concern about others' well-being is indirectly the best way taking care of oneself. So I think here, morally speaking, you have to take care of others' well-being. Then practically also, the more taking care of others' well-being, firstly, you get sort of immense inner satisfaction, and you get feeling of some fulfillment of purpose of our life. Life becomes meaningful, purposeful. Then practical level, of course, sincerely giving, taking care, without thinking sort of the calculation. If I help this much, how much I will get? Not thinking that way. Sincerely is helping. This is a selfish thing. Simply protection of my eye. So then, so you see, sincerely showing concern of others' well-being, then that best way bring more friend. Nobody wants enemy, isn't it? But somehow our action or our attitude become mistake. As a result, enemy come. Otherwise, nobody wants more enemy. So everyone is want more friend. Then how to create a friend? Firstly, ourselves. Extend our genuine love, compassion to them. Even some of them made some mistake, forgiveness, tolerance. And you yourself should not be greedy. Greedy. And contentment. So that's the best way, bring more friend. So that's the selfish, isn't it?
Self-interest.
Self-interest. So that's, I think, I may say again, on the level of universal value or secular value. Then on top of that, a person who are follower of different tradition, then if person I'm a follower of theistic religion, and all brothers, sisters, created by one God. So serving other people, helping other people, indirectly serving God. And certainly, now I'm outsider of theistic religion. I am non-theistic. I am a follower of non-theistic religion. But from my viewpoint, sometimes I feel that God, as He creates the world, and certainly is a God as He creates as a world with joyful harmony, peace, full of love. Certainly God, or maybe a little bit because of that, blunt, but sometimes I'm jokingly telling some of my friend, God create, according to such sort of a plan, but then world becoming more miserable. then God may feel, when I start create world, something wrong. So therefore, you see, we ourselves as a creature, you see, helping each other, bring more compassion, more love. It's the best way to serve God. And I think best way of practice of one's own tradition, like that. Then I may talk non-theistic religious viewpoint. There's mainly Jainism and Buddhism. No idea of God, creator, oneself as a creator. According to law of causality, ultimately one's own mind. So therefore, according to law of causality, every sort of experience oneself, one faces, is due to his own karma. We call karma or action. So therefore, by nature, something sort of good action, which brings joyfulness or happiness on other, the result of that action is joyfulness oneself. So any action which brings pains and harm on other, the result of that action, you will suffer. So from that sort of perspective, from that point of view, that's sort of I don't know, the reason, because of law of causality. Now, since everybody wants happy life, therefore, you should take care or should take the positive action which helping other, which serving other, then you get positive result. And since we do not want suffering, so must restrain harming other because of your own concern for your own long-term consequences. So that's the one way. The theistic religious viewpoint. Non-theistic. Non-theistic religious viewpoint. Now perhaps, giving now in Buddhism, the Bodhisattva yana, that means teaching of selfishness. Selflessness. And the Taoist
altruism.
Or teaching or practice of altruism. Now, according to that, when you start that practice sincerely, seriously, and hold your body, speech, mind dedicated to the well-being of others. So now there are two levels. Mentally, you dedicate it to your own body and your mind and all your virtues to others. And practical level, of course, that does not mean your eye just give, yours or tongue just give, not that way. Till you yourself reach a certain level, you have to take care of one's own body, but mentally dedicated for well-being of others. Then your possession, right?
Your possessions.
Now totally so dedicated for well-being of others. So that's giving.
Charitable giving. No.
Charitable
giving. So in this traditional Bodhisattva ideal, as it is called, there is a notion of giving not only one's entire very existence, body, but also one's possessions, and also whatever positive virtues that one might have accumulated. All of these roots are also to be dedicated to others' welfare.
Now here, they are basically. No, I don't want to go detailed. You may feel boring, and also this certainly is not a lecture on Buddhism. No.
But a lecture on giving.
The 6 parameters, 6 perfection, giving, and correct.
So a key, the core of the Bodhisattva practitioner is understood in terms of what are known as the 6 perfections. And the first of the 6 is the perfection of giving, or perfection of generosity.
No. That delaya church in Jimbadigi so
So from one point of view, from the point of view of the actual practitioner, the cultivation of generosity and giving, and practice of giving serves as an antidote to one's own sense of avarice or miserliness. But also the act of giving itself serves to enhance one's sense of courage as well. However, the ultimate aim of the act of giving is other regarding. It is to bring about the well-being of the recipient. So given that the ultimate object of the act of giving is the bringing about the welfare of the other sentient beings, the recipient, therefore in the Mahayana, in the Bodhisattva teachings, there is an extensive discussion of what constitutes an appropriate form of giving. So you cannot just give anything, even with relation to material needs. One has to understand what types of material things are appropriate to be given, what is the appropriate time of giving, and what is the appropriate kind of attitude of the person who is doing the giving. So, and inappropriate forms of giving as well. So, for example, there might be certain forms of giving which is inappropriate. So if a patron, from the point of view of time, if a patron were to offer a meal to a fully ordained monk in the afternoon, when the fully ordained monks are not supposed to eat after lunch, So that's an inappropriate giving because of the time.
뭐가 돈을 물어 천재진 봐.
So inappropriate forms of giving because of the articles themselves is the giving of weapon. So that's a totally inappropriate form of giving.
And generally poison.
And also poison.
다이네 거를 믹스해야 poison이 패야지고 삼질래는 진고.
However, with relation to poison, sometimes there might be occasions where the poison might be the right thing to give.
다 소수 류동인데 안다. 그거 소수 동에 내서는 말이나 그래가지고 지금 이런 패지돼.
So then, for the Bodhisattva practitioners, there's also a practice of giving parts of one's own body as well. But in order to do that, the practitioner must be able to attain a certain state of mental stability. Otherwise, it becomes inappropriate.
So that 가서 그러면 alcohol 진보이나 sometimes 그래도.
So that also raises the question about the appropriateness of giving alcohol.
And drugs. 그 바로 누구로? 바로 그것도 누구여야 되는 풀 누구로?
So, for example, if someone is begging for it, and although it may temporarily gratify the person who's receiving it, but in the long run, it does more harm to the recipient.
자, 근데다 가다 대단히 군데 내 집어당해서 계속 말해. 파로를 펴놓고.
So the main point I'm raising is that a true act of giving should not be done because to satisfy yourself that I have given something, but because the whole purpose of giving is to benefit the recipient.
대내 집어당 것들이야 유의 멤버를 때는 집어당 누가 말해.
And also when the charitable act is being performed, if the giver performs that act by looking kind of down upon the recipient, that is also inappropriate.
그것이 진 거야.
One has to give with a sense of respect towards the recipient.
아니 진정 없지 차세 또 돼야 힘으로.
And also it is suggested that if someone has dedicated to give something to the recipient, then one needs to give it in a way that is substantial enough so that it can benefit. Whereas if you give it in very tiny installments, which will have no impact upon the recipient, that is also unhelpful.
So one particular text, Tomic.
So in fact, a lot of these discussions are found in a 4th century Buddhist text by Master Asanga.
So basically, giving something from that, you see, you get, as I mentioned before, some satisfaction. And the others also get some satisfaction.
However, another important form of giving is not necessarily material, but referred to as the giving of spiritual counsel, some form of help.
Or spiritual, or even general education.
Counsel, yeah.
Out of sincere motivation, then teachers sort of work, give lesson to the student out of sincere sort of feeling and with sense of responsibility. That also one of the best sort of form of giving. Then doctors or physicians, that also with sincere motivation is one of the best sort of
form of giving.
Form of giving. I think that's all.
Well, let's have a dialogue. And Betsy Gordon, who knows a lot about giving from her own experience, would like to talk to you about that.
Hello. I've really enjoyed the opportunity. I think of it as an opportunity for me, and it's been given to me. My parents and my grandparents, and at this time in my life, it seems I've grown to the opportunity, and I'm very excited about it. most of my giving comes from my heart. So when I meet somebody, if I make a connection like that's how I know, that this is right, and then to take that opportunity. But there's some things that I'd like to share that opportunity with other people. Like here in California, the Tibetan area, the Northern Association, they need a home. And it makes sense to me, it makes absolute sense, but I'd like to be able to help more than I can, and to kind of share that with other people. And I don't really know how to get to that point. So if you have any hints on how to share this opportunity.
밤에 기도고 돈에 뭐 고급들아 봐봐. 집에 갈 수술에 되게 쉬운 것도 진짜 지혜시다 기도 유년 졸 대나신전에 야고도 세제 군들에 봐. 세시를 책도나 삼고도 지금지야 고급 망아 고급 계신 분에서 고급 자신 분에서 들이야 군들 라당 고 답시를 가려나 군들 심슈 당해로 지혜신다 좀. 진다신다 좀.
I don't know.
Okay. I'll let you know if I find out anything.
I think that depends on the other person. If other person is ready to receptive.
Is receptive?
Then of course your explanation, your own example, gives them sort of what's the idea, do more things. The other person, not that much receptive, then nothing can be done.
It's so funny because it's such a great opportunity, I feel, that I've gotten so much out of the things that I've done, from the kids to the ladies at Shuksep to just the many things. It's just been such a gift to me.
Very good, you see that? You should carry continuously. And then perhaps in modern time, more publicity. And perhaps, if possible, some sort of lecture on this topic, according to your own sort of experience, to some sort of an institution, and particularly younger generation. That's also one way. See, these are not just fairy tales.
So these are not just fairy tale stories.
You yourself experience and doing. As a result, you got immense benefit, inner satisfaction. So tell other people, you see, anyone, now irrespective whether educated or uneducated, whether religious-minded or non, still human being. See, you give, what's the day?
You receive love.
You yourself you get the joyfulness like that. So these are, I think, in order to develop happier human society, these kind of action is very necessary. So tell more people.
Well, you guys. Why not? Yeah. Well, I want to tell you about the Tibetans of Northern California are looking for a home, and we need some funding. And if you can help, I would love it, they would love it, and you might like it too, so you can come visit. But we really do need your help, and I feel really strongly about them having a home here because they don't have one in Tibet now. So if you can help, please let me know, and I'll connect you with some of the Tibetans that I've been working with doing that project. It would be great. Thanks. Thank you.
Michael Quinn, you've been involved in a great many philanthropic activities, and perhaps you'd like to talk a little bit about that and have some questions.
Okay. So, Your Holiness, one of the things that my family and I and friends have been involved in is trying to unify and bring, basic, the capabilities to mankind through the fact that we are global citizens. We are all, this is just, we are all together on this planet. There's nowhere else for us to go. Getting along, and as you stated, that giving of ourselves, both spiritually as well as materially, is wonderful, but a key thing for us is giving as well from the spiritual point of view, the education, the intellectual ability for others to both learn why giving is so important, why being representative and living both your faith and your beliefs is key to influencing others to do good and to remove the barriers of bigotry and poverty and drive equality for all of mankind. In those efforts, one of the things that we face is really, there are lots of people who are aware. And yet the unification of those efforts to drive the larger impact that we can have versus the individual. So the question is, as we look to become more global and the world becomes smaller in lots of ways, how would His Holiness advise us to work together to unify our efforts so that we have a larger impact and a more sustained impact?
Yeah, that I exactly agree. I mean, I fully agree. I fully support that. If you look from space, hardly no differences. This nation or that nation, just one blue planet. And then also when we meet people, whether African, whether Asian, whether Latin American or European, face, two eyes, 2 ears, nose. Of course, there are some sort of shapes and color, some difference. Otherwise, exactly same. So demarcation on the basis of religion or basis of class also, richer family, poor family. And also the nationality, American, or European, or Mexican. These are actually secondary. The basic thing is we are same human being. And sameness means here mentally, emotionally, physically, we're exactly same. Of course, little difference, of course, even within a day, oneself also see our body particles always changing. And some of our ideas also changing. But little differences is always there. But basically, as I mentioned earlier, entire 6 billion beings are the same. Then, as I mentioned before, my fundamental belief is we are social animals. So, if we divide on secondary sort of the level, it is actually unrealistic attitude. Firstly, we must think importance of humanity. There are no differences. 6 million human beings, entire 6 million human beings, just same, one human family. So I usually call sense of global responsibility or oneness of entire human being. then practically also. If we 6 billion work together with firm sort of belief, we are the same human being. Nobody wants war, nobody wants suffering. Work together, share together. Right? Richer family, richer nation, give something to poorer nation, right? Poorer community. Now here, I think one serious thing is, as firstly, sometimes the people call it patriotic survey, patriotic.
Nationalism.
National patriotic.
Patriotism.
Of course, this is not a political sort of argument or political sort of statement. But look, the people from China, now sometimes they, I think, dangerously, extremely, they utilize nationalism. And always reminds the Japanese atrocities. Whereas I had a number of I have quite a number of friends among Japanese as well as Germany. So I noticed, and in fact, I asked many occasions. For example, some Japanese, do you have some kind of negative feeling towards the United States? Because the United States actually utilize nuclear bomb on you. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I also visited. Oh, really terrible. So do you have some kind of resentment feeling? They say no. And then also Germans. I asked, so they say, you know, now for example, recently when Obama, as a candidate, visit Berlin, I think over 200,000 Germans say, very much welcome him. So that's good. And one of my old, I consider my tutor, my teacher on physics, quantum physics, one Professor von Weizsäcker on German. He once told me, when he was young, in German eye, every French is their enemy. And similarly, in French eye, every German is their enemy. But that kind of attitude completely gone, he said. So, too much sort of nationalism, divide. It is bad. So then secondly, unfortunately, sometimes religious faith also dividing. That's also sad. Now, for example, if I'm a Buddhist, if we Buddhists consider ourselves as something superior, and then others, and a little bit so lower, then if you that viewpoint, you see, you always remain mentally, emotionally, remain distant. As a result, suspicion, distrust. What use that? Is it really serving God? No, certainly not. So the religious faith also, if you not properly practice, then also create more division. So therefore, I feel wherever I go, I just is talking the audience, just a human being. Nothing special, nothing different. And then easily you should communicate. To me, you see no differences when I talk with few individual or few thousand. I feel same. Then immediately you see,
interaction is easy. Interaction becomes easy.
Become very normal. So that's, I think, very, very important. Then another, I think, serious matter is rich and poor, global level, and also national level. So the richer side, I think both sides have now. I think this gap, rich and poor, is not only morally wrong, but practically also sort of problem. We must address this. We must change this situation. Now for that, I think both sides have responsibility. The poorer side, instead of anger, jealousy, sometimes more frustration, isn't it? Instead of doing that, carrying that kind of attitude, work hard, study, training, and work hard with self-confidence. And then this side, the richer side, provide them education and training and eventually equipment. So on the mentally equal sort of
Respect.
With respect. So I appreciate your work, your sort of thinking, very good. But then these are my own sort of limited knowledge, limited sort of experience. So you might have your more experience, more sort of what's the expertise. Not that.
Oh, so question's mine. So I agree. I think that you identified the key areas, that there's benefit on both sides. Everyone has a responsibility. Our responsibility is to I think from this side, from those that have, is to be the first to reach out, to be the first to give, to be the most respectful and most patient. And however, to also be the ones that work with those that have not, the poor, those in poverty, to understand their responsibilities as well, and bring that social relationship of being equals together. Thank you.
No.
Your Holiness, you've talked about the 21st century as a century of dialogue.
Yes.
How could we facilitate a dialogue between the haves and the have-nots? We have a growing gap. What is the way to create that dialogue?
I think recognition, others simply human brothers, sisters. So they also have every right. Now here, perhaps I may add to one thing. Some people, from the non-theistic religious viewpoint, that's due to karma. Poor people, due to their own karma, remain poor. And theistic viewpoint, God created such a way, so poor remain poor. I think that's wrong. That's wrong. We have to work. Right? Although these things, God created, and or non-theistic religious viewpoint, due to karma, that's true. But that does not mean never changing. Through action, we can change. Action from both sides, as I mentioned earlier. The karma itself is action. So action bring
Transformation. Change.
Result according to action. So therefore, action not come from sky, but action of human effort. So therefore, everything depends on oneself. So the poorer section of the people, in India also, the low class, clearly, you see, there is some kind of a clear sign of frustration and a little bit of anger towards the richer family and also the Brahmin, upper caste. High caste. So that kind of mental attitude won't help to solve the problem. So I always telling them, now instead of sort of keeping some kind of frustration, anger, resentment, say, work hard and with self-confidence. That is very, very important. Sometimes you see the people from a difficult family, they're a little bit
lack of confidence.
Oh, lack of confidence. At one time in Africa, South Africa, I had the opportunity to visit Soweto township. I deliberately wanted to see one family, and then eventually the organizer arranged they visit one family. So there, of course, that day quite hot, and that family provided me one tea, Indian tea. Oh, really delicious! I still remember with Indian music. Then I inquire the member of their work or profession or their family member. The mother is very much concerned about education for her, I think, 2 sons. So then eventually I took, because of the sponsored for their education, further education. So one, at that time, one their neighbors or a friend joined, and he introduced me as a teacher. Then I praised, teacher's work is very, very important. It's something very beneficial. Right? Then I told them, now Constitution changed. Now Constitution provides you equality. But it naturally takes more time, the transformation in emotion level. Then I mentioned, you see, it is very important now for work hard and with self-confidence. Then that teacher expressed to me, we black African, our brain inferior. Inferior. And I really felt very sad. If that kind of mental attitude there, then we will never be equal. So I argue with him. This is absolutely wrong. From scientific viewpoint also, see, completely equal. No differences of brain potential or according color, no differences. And then I made example. There's some Chinese also is considered Tibetan a little bit inferior. But this is not the case. When we Tibetan have opportunity, study, or work in India, in free country, so we equally reach. Demonstrated. I mentioned. And then finally, he expressed, now he convinced, we are same. When he expressed that, I feel tremendous relief. At least I have done something, some work, some sort of help to at least one individual. So that's key thing. Self-confidence is very, very essential. So sometimes I feel people come from the family where more difficulties, economically is poorer, and the education also is behind. Then sometimes you get that kind of attitude. I think that we have to tackle. That's one thing I felt.
Sejal Hati, you have done some tremendous work with organization Girls Helping Girls. Perhaps you can tell us something about that.
Sure. So, we were just talking a little bit about the importance of unifying people of different backgrounds to make a difference. And that's essentially what we seek to do. Girls Helping Girls, our mission is really to democratize the quest for peace worldwide by building a sisterhood of change makers, of girls helping girls to make their vision for the world a reality. And every girl that we do help, every story that we're able to sculpt into one of hope and self-renewal really brings blessings. It brings an indescribable sense of self-fulfillment to each of the individuals that work on my team. And for me, personally, I know that Girls Helping Girls has been my life force, my meaning, the vehicle through which I've not only empowered thousands of other girls to redefine their potential, but the one in which I have discovered my own, and really understood finally my potential worth to the world. And so thinking about this and wondering about this, I came to the question that altruism, selflessness, selfless giving, is that really something that exists? Or do you think, Your Holiness, that that is really an ideal that we can approach, constantly seek to attain, but never actually fully grasp, comprehend, consummate? So in your opinion, what do you think about that?
Champagne conversation.
다른데 직 모랄레게 돈에 내가 지금 되게 수술이야 펜도시라 총스 수술이 보다는데 뭐만 해야 돼. 대자다 타직도 배 신변 장장이야. 세대 스탄다직 이면체 잠마도 이면체바 잠마도 오늘 단에 요나스 타칸다 직 근데 타직도 신변 장장이야. 신변.
You from India, Asia?
Your background is Indian, or?
Yes, Indian.
Russia.
Indian.
Yeah, from Gujarat.
Gujarat.
Gujarat. Oh. I always refer Indians, actually, spiritually, our guru. We are Buddhist. Buddhism comes from India. So I always say, mention the relation between Indian and Tibetan, like relation between teacher and student. So I'm student. You are my guru. Now I think the advantage of India, I think a multi-religious sort of nation, 1,000 years. So as a result, the different religious traditions live together harmoniously. Any child, from their childhood, take for granted there are many several religions. I think that's one advantage. Look in Northern Ireland, and also some in Pakistan or some Iraq, this area. They follow of same teacher, like Jesus Christ or Muhammad, but you see, fighting Sunni and Shia, Catholic and Protestant. When I saw these things, India's tradition is wonderful. That's an example of the rest of the world. And then India's 1,000-year-old tradition, ahimsa, non-violence. I feel non-violence is, I think, more powerful than peace.
Word.
Sometimes you see peace, for example, the former Soviet Union, when I first visit there, still communist Soviet Union. So they always say, peace-loving nation. And all their military preparation for peace. So one small story. At that time, some Russian, some Soviet sort of journalist, they try to put the word peace-loving nation on my tongue, on my mouth. I refuse to repeat that word because that's not true. I know something about Western mentality. I already visited Europe since '73. So I visited Russia '79. So I know there is no sort of desire to attack Russia and destroy Soviet Union. No. But more danger is some sort of
coming from the east.
From east. So is it that? So you see, non-violent. I think peace Well, while you are making every preparation for war, but still, in some extent, you can say, oh, for peace. But non-violence, I think, difficult to say. While making preparation for war or making more weapon, then non-violence, I think, difficult. Isn't it? So the India sort of 1,000-year-old tradition, non-violence, ahimsa. I think that's very, very important. So now we must, in recent years, I'm urging, my Indian master, my Indian guru, I'm just a messenger of ancient Indian thought. That's all, nothing else. Nothing special for me, nothing, just ordinary human being, a Buddhist monk. Usually I always say simple Buddhist monk. But you see, all these, my sort of ideas, talking about peace and non-violence, compassion, forgiveness, these are India's message, or religious tolerance, religious harmony. So therefore, since messenger is making every effort to promote these things, now my master must come out and take more active role for promotion of ahimsa and the promotion of religious harmony. So I'm very happy. Yeah, one young girl from India. Historically, you are my master. That was the question. Now here, I always mention when I talk about compassion, there's two levels. One level, mainly biological factor. That compassion is biased, limited, much mixed with attachment. Now, on that level, as you say, it is true.
So on that level, the idea of total selflessness is, it's not possible.
But take that as a seed. Then with help of wisdom and with help of wider sort of
perspective,
full of knowledge of wider perspective, right? And then through training, through reasoning, that limited biased compassion can transform unbiased, infinite love, compassion. Now that level, now the truly altruistic, totally selflessness is possible. So that's not a biological factor. That's through training, through cultivation, and with help of wisdom. So that we need, not necessarily from religious sort of training, but simply using our common sense and scientific findings. So through that way, I think to some extent, the genuine altruism can develop, I feel. But again, as I mentioned earlier, if you think from deeply, more altruistic sort of work, you get benefit. So
there is a Tibetan expression that although your intention is to help others, but as a byproduct, you get benefit.
You know Bodhisattva, the word Bodhisattva, do you know?
The word?
The word Bodhisattva.
Yes, I think so. Is it one of the saints? Yeah.
No. Bodhisattva means totally dedicated one's own life for benefit of other. Yeah. So I often, telling people, and also I feel, these people who totally dedicated their body, speech, mind to well-being of other, It's actually most selfish, wise selfish. Our thinking, oh, just me, and forget of others' well-being is foolish selfish. So if we have enough intelligence, right, enough intelligence, and think from various angles, then we can realize it's just our usual thinking of self-centeredness. It's really foolish, really foolish. But think more, you get immense benefit. So that's why selfish.
I mean, I definitely agree with you. I think that our greatest strength lies in the understanding that we are rooted inextricably in one another, that we are all intrinsically connected as a great fabric of humanity, a common humanity. But, increasingly today, especially with, the financial crisis, the turmoil that's happening around the world, we see people and nations are actually becoming maybe more protectionist. And Rhind, her objectivist philosophy of individualism, the books that she wrote are now selling at a prodigious rate, like 200,000 books in the past month or two alone. It's really seen a surge in popularity. So for those people who are thinking that, by empowering myself, then I can help the rest of the world, and I need to focus on myself first. For nations that are thinking in the same way, how would you respond to them? To combat not only the crisis that we as a world are facing, but common problems that we'll confront in the future.
말에 단디 다다나 벤조 강에도 되게 돈에 롱범망부지다 실로네 주 총제다 고가제 수수숭이야.
찾았어요.
맞아. 전다파 로고시나 맞아요. 데이터 주된 거로 와서. 아니 그게 참 자샤비네. 데게 제자다 건드랑된 개체 그래서 이게 대두들이 숙지 못 두고도 되게 따당이야. 아니 동네를 답시 가려놨어.
뭐. 되게 버려. 얘는 랑일 셴을 로차 누르면 이렇게 로차.
So in one sense, this is actually true, because if you don't have the capacity within yourself to help others, then you cannot help others. So somehow the capacity needs to be built first. So the world wouldn't be a good place if we have the world is filled with poor people who can, even though they might be able to share each other's suffering, but everybody is poor, then it doesn't help either.
So do you think that there has to be a hierarchy between nations or people in order for real, sincere, and fruitful giving to take place? Because if we need to have the capacity to give and to help one another, then that means that we need to be filled with some sort of advantage first before we can give to other people. So is a hierarchy necessary in order for fruitful giving to take place?
Today, of course, the ideal situation.
Our aim is
our aim and the ideal situation would be everybody to become rich. Yeah.
No. Of course, I think now I'm not an economist. I'm just ignorant person. I don't know. But roughly, as far as the socio-economy theory is concerned, I'm Marxist. Of course, I totally against the Leninism, totalitarian. That I totally against. But Karl Marx, as the philosopher or theoretician, building classless society, and more serious concern about equal distribution, rather than just one or capitalist system through capitalist practice and become rich, and then
and then trickling down effect by giving some charitable donations.
So that's not good. So, but they repeat socialism, and everybody remain poor. That's also not good. I think things have been sort of, because of the policy, I think right, the practical level. So the ideology alone will not fulfill. So must work hard and must change. So sometimes I feel, you see, the Tungo means Middle Kingdom. So Middle Kingdom never find the middle way of sort of the policy. Sometimes leftist, sometimes rightist. Always go like that. Now today, the people from China, actually, you see, they what capitalist, communist. Okay, Communist Party without communist ideology. That's simply capitalist communist. It's so quite
strange.
Quite strange.
Your Holiness, you said something very interesting early on, that giving creates courage in the giver, and therefore giving helps people overcome fears they might have. How do we confront our fears? I think we're in a room here full of caring, loving, giving people, yet all of us at some level know that we're not generous enough. And there must be something that prevents us from being more generous. How do we confront that and overcome it?
Fear. Some fear are positive, some fear are negative, some fear more or less natural. I think it depends its causes and conditions. So usually, I think now here, I think the answer for that, I feel we should adopt realistic approach. Then necessary fear may come. Unnecessary fear will not come. I think your attitude in any sort of field, analyze the reality, and when you analyze the reality, your mind must be very open, totally objective. When you carry analyzation, say if you put something, I want that, and then accordingly analyze, then biased, not objective. So when we investigate, it must be totally objective, and also must look from various aspects. Usually I describe one dimension, you can't see the reality. 4 dimension or 6 dimension, then you can see the reality. That's very, very important. Then carry the realistic approach. Then through that way, if you really see some danger, then fear is necessary. That brings caution. Since you know that,
so then, if you approach the reality in that manner, then you will also have a better appreciation of what you can do and what you cannot do. So if the situation indicates through that approach that this is beyond your capacity, then you simply have to accept that reality. So here, an advice from an 8th century Buddhist master can be sometimes helpful when he says that when dealing with a problem, you should approach with an attitude and say, see that if there is a solution, there is no need to be overwhelmed and worry about it. If there is no solution and you cannot do anything, then there is no point in being overwhelmed and worry about it.
So that's realistic approach. So suppose our intelligence, you see, bring us because of the reality, and our approach, so then become realistic approach.
What you just said reminds me of a quotation from Mother Teresa, who said, "When I look at the mass of suffering, I feel I can do nothing. But when I look at one individual, I will act."
Yes.
And this is one thing I really like about this organization, the Forgotten International, is that we're making an effort to make contact with individuals, both who are doing good work in their community so we can support them,
Right.
and individuals who are really suffering. And don't you agree that it's that effort to meet face-to-face with individuals that is the basis for real change?
Oh yes, that's absolutely. Change on the basis, change comes only on the basis of zero and viruddha.
So one has to build up from zero an individual, one individual, and so on. So it's unrealistic to expect a kind of a radical change coming from nowhere, suddenly.
That's absolutely.
Well, Your Holiness, thank you for spending this time with us. Do you have any final words as we all contemplate our capacity to give?
No, nothing. I really appreciate all your commitment. Wonderful. Now the motivation is very, very important. If you're carrying some wonderful sort of service to other, helping other, but with motivation, if I do this, I got some good name or something like that. That's a mistake. Must think sincerely, altruistic sort of attitude, motivation. That's important. Then, I think I must say, as I mentioned before, whenever I talk, I because of that, talking like completely informal.
Of course, I don't prepare, so it's all very informal.
Oh, so if too informal, too frank or blunt, then apologize. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank Dr. Thupten Jimba for translating. I did not introduce him earlier. And now we have an opportunity to sit and listen to some beautiful music while we think about the conversation we've just heard. Vocalist Brent Hammond and pianist David Stein, along with members of the San Jose Youth Chamber Orchestra, will now perform John Lennon's beautiful song, Imagine.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no country. It isn't hard to do. nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
I too would very much like to thank His Holiness, a friend of mine for some years and someone I love dearly. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for spending some time with us. A couple of quick, very minor things. The orchestra is going to play, as His Holiness leaves, some Tibetan songs that they've been working on. One of his favorites, I believe. I will also ask him to maybe take a photograph with some of the youngsters who have worked so hard to prepare the music for today's show. I also want to let you know that those flower arrangements on your table, there are 10 people at your table. There are 10 individual flower arrangements. They're all gifts to you, of course, from the forgotten. So pick out the flower and the little flower stand. I forgot exactly the name of what it's called. And take that home with you. Also, when you leave, there are some presents outside that will be waiting for you. So grab one of our volunteers, take one of those gifts. I suspect it'll help you to remember today, but maybe you don't need a gift to remember that. Okay. I will also try to at least make some effort to have His Holiness visit at least some of the tables up front here. But his time is short. He will be going, of course, from, as I said earlier, from here to a soup kitchen and spending some time with America's poor. I think actually of all of the events he's doing in the Bay Area this weekend, it is the one he's looking most forward to. And I'm glad I will be accompanying him. So thanks everybody for coming, and thank you for giving us a chance to share some of the love that this man possesses with all of you, and for feeling some of the love in the room. Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, the young people worked on that song for a couple of months, and it was quite beautiful, quite beautiful. Thank you. Also, I wanted to thank some of our special guests here today, Salesforce.com, who's been really very, very supportive of all of our work and have helped an awful lot. So Mark Bandnoff is here, and that's great. There's certainly an awful lot of supporters in the room, and if I had more time, I would thank you all, but please accept my apologies for not doing that. Our schedule is very tight, but thank you again. We're going to try to leave this stage. We'll try to visit with some of you, and maybe we'll see you in a couple of years when the Dalai Lama comes back.
Right there. One more, just a moment, so I can get everybody in.